Namaste and welcome to Youth TV Show produced by today's Youth Asia. Youth TV Show is a youth-led and youth-produced weekly television show which is an outcome of 9 years of hard work and dedication of our youth. We interview prominent leaders from around the world. We cover youth events. We also discuss local, national, regional and global issues and also try to find practical solutions to issues that concern our society. In today's episode, we have with us Ms. Lesley Abdela. Ms. Abdela is an international women's human rights campaigner and a post-conflict gender specialist who has worked for over 25 years in the field of gender development. She is also an award-winning journalist and is considered to be one of the world's leading experts in the field of gender.
Perhaps I should start with why I'm here in Nepal at the moment. I was in Nepal 2 years ago as the senior gender advisor to the UN humanitarian agencies, and I was here for 6 months, 2007 to 8. And this time I'm here, I was invited by CARE Austria and CARE International because this year it's the 10th anniversary of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, which is the first ever resolution about women and women's rights to participation in all aspects of peace processes. And this year, because it's the 10th anniversary, lots of organizations all around the world are taking stock. How far have we come in 10 years? Where next? And the actual anniversary is in October this year, so there'll be a lot of activities, and along with other organizations, CARE internationally are looking, and they're putting together a survey looking at 3 countries, in CARE's case 3 countries, which are Uganda, Afghanistan and Nepal. And I was asked if I would do the survey for Nepal, looking at what's happening on Resolution 1325 here, how far is it being implemented, what next, so that's why I'm here. And I just spent the last 6 days in some of the poorest communities in the Terai region, various parts of Terai, and it's been a very interesting experience. We were sort of wading through rivers and riding motorbikes and riding ox carts to get to various communities, to listen to women in some of the poorest women in the poorest communities who have some very interesting opinions.
The 1325 Act has increased the participation of women in decision-making levels in conflict resolution and peace process by appointing them as special representatives and envoys. How is this being implemented in Nepal?
Oh, right. It's not specifically women as special representatives. What it's saying is that in all levels of peace discussions, mediation, peace processes, women should be included as equal partners. And as often there are not enough women in official, formal sectors of society, it makes a big point of including women and men from civil society, from NGOs and other groups as well. In terms of how it's being implemented, did you say here in Nepal or globally? All right, in Nepal. Right now, there's actually a lot going on. There is a national action plan being drawn up. Countries around the world, governments are drawing up national action plans. And the Ministry for Peace and Reconstruction is the lead ministry on this here. There's a group called the Peace Support Working Group 1325, which is the international agencies supporting the ministry doing this. And then the international organizations like CARE and many of the other international organizations, the women's networks like WABDCA and Shanti Malaki and Chagran and lots of the are all doing various things. But what I was looking at this week was how much women in the grassroots, in the smallest communities, the poorest women, how much were they being involved in the process? What about at district level? And the National Action Plan are part of the process, because it's not just the outcome that's important, it's do people feel involved. If people don't feel involved, it's nothing to do with them. And as a start, there are going to be 35 participatory meetings around the country in different parts of Nepal, to which at each meeting about 60 people will be invited from the local area, from conflict-affected people, judges, police leaders, political parties, etc. And then there will be, I think, 5 of the meetings will be for girls who were directly affected by the conflict. It's aimed at the areas where there's been the most sort of involved and impacted on by the conflict. And these are, if I say that, for me, the complicated interaction between all these different civil society groups and government groups and international groups makes the Nepali complicated caste system look simple, then you'll understand how very complicated it is to try and follow who's who and who's doing what. But there is a lot going on. I think probably more will need to go on, but the idea is that before October this year, there should be a national action plan that has been produced, which will be the start of implementing some of the recommendations, because there are quite a few recommendations. If you go on the internet, do you have access to the internet? Can you put up your hands if you have access to the internet? Right, so you all have access to the internet here. If you have access to the internet and you type in 1325, Resolution 1325, you'll find a lot about it internationally. But since then, there have been what I call the daughters of 1325, which are 3 more resolutions that begin with 18, so it's like 18, 20, and 18, 20, I can never remember the numbers. But anyway, these resolutions were particularly addressing the issue of violence against women, protection, prevention, the need for justice for women who experience violence. And I know here there was quite a lot of controversy, wasn't there, that people who committed rape or were responsible might be going to be able to be pardoned and so on. But I think because of the, I hope I'm right in saying accurate, that because of the actions of women here, with support of some of the men here, that has been pushed back now, and that because within the framework of 1325, people can be prosecuted for rape and must be as a war crime. So there's a lot going on here of awareness raising, but because of all sorts of complicated things, etc., there are a number of people who've never heard of 1325 resolution, and I think in the international community as well, there's probably quite a few who haven't. I say well done, Youth Asia, today's Youth Asia, because you're a group, you're a very influential group amongst young people, certainly in the valley here. So I hope you'll spread the word, and I hope you'll challenge some of the things, because it's only by having input, you're the future of this country, and by having your input is going to decide the future of this country. It's not people like me coming from Britain or people outside. It's going to be up to you. The future's in your hands.
What measures can we take to improve the condition of women and children in Nepal?
I think by listening and responding to what they're asking for. There was quite an interesting point came up. CARE have been doing, I'm only talking more about CARE now because I'm here with CARE, and I was just come from the field, as I said. I've been looking at other organizations too, and I'll mention that. But one of the partner groups of CARE, one of the community groups, very poor group, had a 20-week training on how women can get their rights within the framework of 1325 resolution, what they're entitled to. How do you make your local authority provide the health service that you're entitled to? How do you get access to it? A lot of people, women, didn't even know that they were entitled to various things. How do you go and get the officials to do what they're responsible for? And one of the things that the women who've been through this training a while back had done, for example, was they had got on the local forestry committee, and they were sort of running the very local forestry committee. And because they were feeling very empowered, what they said was, now we're feeling empowered, and we're learning how to get our rights. We don't want to be called marginalized women. We don't want to be referred to as though we're poor, poverty, marginalized women. We want to be considered as women and citizens, which is an interesting thought for us all. So we can start by treating people as citizens and women and men, and not perhaps calling them marginalized and poor. But as to what you can do is, I mean, there's a lot of things that came up were about members of the family, in-laws and husbands, who either bully, intimidate, or beat up their partners or members of the family. And I think to speak up against violence, that sort of violence of women, if it's going on in your family, and that's something definitely can be done, or your neighbors, or to other people, because in some communities it's almost considered normal right to be able to do that. One woman said to me, and I shall carry her words for a long time, we were driving along to a very remote village, and she said, you know, I was married at 13, and I can't tell you how many times I walked down this road to do the planting in the fields and to look after the fields, crying, because I was so miserable when I first got married, because I didn't know how to cook, and my mother-in-law was bullying me all the time and telling me I was good for nothing. And she said, I walked down this road so many times, just tears coming down my face. So I think, to answer your question, is to make men and women aware that women are equal partners in building this country in the future, and to practice that, not just talk about it, but think about when decisions are being made, and as you move up the ladder, as I'm sure you will in whatever you're doing, to make sure that there's women and men having meaningful participation. My brief for this was not to just look at how many numbers there are. First you get the numbers. You know, there are 33% on the Constituent Assembly, and that's great. That's really important. But then you get people saying, but are they effective? Well, the next stage is how to help them to be effective, set them up for success, help them. How do you work in committees? How do you speak in public? How do male colleagues treat them with respect and not contempt? So that means training the men as well. How do we develop a gender-sensitive parliament or district council or local peace group or committee? How do we make it sure that everything we're doing, we're not being dismissive just because a woman says an opinion and we don't say, well, yeah, okay, right, and then ignore it. We actually take it into consideration.